We can have the questions from the audience.
This is regarding the vitamin D. I think the author, maybe, I don't know, he hasn't mentioned about the aging effect of vitamin D synthesis. Because during the aging, the enzyme which photosynthesize the vitamin D is reduced. And that is a very important factor. That is the reason why aged individuals are more prone for vitamin D deficiency. In addition to the occupational defects. And and the second thing is that there is also genetic involvement is also there in the vitamin D synthesis. The typical example is multiple sclerosis patients, where the normal amount of vitamin D replacement doesn't produce the required effect. For those people, you require to replace more than the normally recommended dose. These 2 points, I would like to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am Dr. Bharat, endocrinologist. I would like to ask a question to Dr. Rekha Kurian. Ma'am, you very well highlighted in your talk about the AMH, the problems with the AMH assay. Actually, there was a critical appraisal on the AMH which was published in JCEM, in Endocrinology Journal, in March 2014. And in that appraisal, they have told several pre-analytical and analytical problems with the starting from the way it has been collected and way it has been stored. Even a storage at -20 degree, it raises AMH levels to around 70%. Yeah. So with this kind of problems, several problems with the AMH assay, even in Western countries, I don't know how much our AMH assays are reliable in our laboratories, whether they really know the way it has to be collected, it has to be stored and analyzed or not. So in the present situation, whether you would still, will you recommend using AMH? Because many places in reproductive departments, they use AMH for assessing ovarian function. Maybe in future we may have a good assay methods, but in the present scenario in Indian setup, whether we can still use AMH to assess ovarian function?
Yeah, what you said is perfectly correct. From venipuncture, how the blood is stored and how long after the blood is taken that the test is done, all this makes a difference towards AMH. But however, now there is a lot of standardization. People are understanding that these do make a difference. And so that is one reason why I said, because standardization improves, then the AMH becomes more reliable. But as of now as well, AMH is quite reliable when we compare with the antral follicle count. So they seem to correlate quite well. Also, we know that there are a couple of methods of the generation 1 assay and the generation 2 assay, which also had some problems, and a lot of the kits were called back. So because of that as well, there has been problems, but things are improving, and I think the standardization will improve even better. But clinically, when we look at AFC and AMH in correlation, and the prediction for polycystic ovarian disease, prediction for ovarian hyperstimulation, and the poor responder, it seems to correlate even now we feel it correlates quite well.
Thank you.
With the Indian kids.
Dr. Mala? So role of fasting insulin and the ratio of fasting insulin and blood sugar, is it still relevant? And one more thing is, what's the role of myo-inositol? Does it totally replace metformin or is it an adjunct?
For the first question, though it's a good marker, it need not necessarily be used in routine clinical practice. This is something which I want to emphasize, because I very often see this insulin glucose ratios being measured. It is not required. It's only a research tool for us to find out. As far as myo-inositol is concerned, there are a few papers which have shown there is a pathophysiology also for myo-inositol being useful in PCO, but it has definitely not replaced metformin, because it does not affect that many targets as metformin does.
A couple of questions. Well, first, Dr. Rekha Kurian, about the other end of the spectrum, the use of AMH in women who is suspecting undergoing early menopause. Do you think that we should be using it more often simply because FSH is such an unreliable test in early menopause. What is the experience with this? Do you use it often? And then I have one for Mala after that.
Yeah, so, actually, some people are now recommending, because women are not getting married even by the age of 35, in such women to screen and to tell them, or they haven't found the right guy. They are, yeah, exactly. So we can, you can advise these women. There are women also who come even to us on a regular basis saying, can you store my oocytes? So, and on the other hand, we also find 44-year-old, married 1 year ago, within 6 months she is conceived. So, since we have both extremes, it's good if we can tell a person who's 35 or 40, which is good AMH or antral follicle counts, if you go by, that she is quite okay, she need not freeze. At the same time, another woman with at age of 35 with a low AMH, we can offer oocyte freezing now. It's available in India, and we would offer. One could even use it as a screening tool. So even that is being recommended in some populations.
See, contrary to Bharat's statement, my feeling is that as the ultrasound technology is improving, our problem has been finding too many follicles in PCOS. So the AMH is probably a much more reliable test than using ultrasound in the diagnosis of PCOS. So I mean, this is just a personal comment, but it's based on some data that is available. Well, I have a couple of questions for you. One is...
I think a combination, as I said earlier, a combination of AMH and AFC would actually make your ROC much better.
One is the use of metformin with statins. Do you use them a lot? The second is, I also want you to comment on this new letrozole study that was published. Do you think that we should start, all the panelists, should we be using more letrozole in practice now that we have much more robust data on letrozole rather than what we had before?
What was the first question?
The combination of metformin and statins. They were
in polycystic
ovaries?
PCOS? I am not in favor of starting statins in a very young age group unless absolutely required. And as far as letrozole is concerned, I have no personal experience with letrozole in PCO patients. I have it in gynecomastia, but not so much in this. So I don't know, but I'm not even aware of that study that you're talking about.
Dr. Rekha, Hageesh,
yeah, letrozole is a very useful agent, but unfortunately it's been banned by the government for use in infertility. So unless that comes off, we are not able to use letrozole. But otherwise, while it was available to us, it was extremely useful where clomiphene failure occurred.
Is there a question?
We were using for a gynecologist, gynecomastia in adolescents, but I think there are some reports to suggest it does produce some amount of a spinal abnormalities in adolescent group. That's why we have stopped using letrozole in the adolescent group, but still we use in the adults and postmenopause.
Gender medicine or women's health is established subspecialty in North America, so it's nice to have all of you talking about gender medicine. Dr. Veni was our registrar, so we hope that one day we also have an academic program in gender medicine. Just to wind up, Vagis Iyer, sardine, the salmon is it's available only in Atlantic. Okay, in India, I mean in Bay of Bengal or Arabia, we get sardine. I'm a Keralite. Sardine is cheap and best. Okay, and it gives omega-3 fatty acids, a number of things. The question is to Dr. Mala Dharmalingam. See, of course, we know that autophosphorylation is a common defect, but metformin is slow and steady, right? Just like endocrinologist, I think. So many women, they don't want to talk to us. They just rush to the gynecologist next door, and they are concerned about the pregnancy or family life. But still, some of them, when we put forward, when you say metformin is safe and future and all, they come to us. The issue is about 100 brands of metformin is available. Some of them are very potent. Hypoglycemia may be an issue. Of course, I sometimes fight with you people when you recommend insulin, Tresiba or something. But here, do you favor any brands?
Because no, I don't favor any brand, but I always ask them to use a reputed company where we know that it comes from a good source.
Glucophages, of course, it's better late than never. Glucophages marketed recently, and in the past it is Cetapin. So these two, because in India we don't know how to choose a brand, bioavailability and side effects. So we request that, of course, we are not supposed to. It is not an expensive thing. Metformin is cheap. So your societies can endorse certain good products Thanks. And other thing is that depression. He started statin. Statin, we know that not much is available about the reproductive, because HMG-CoA reductase is a wonderful thing for so many steroidogenesis, but the common comorbidity is not the hypercholesterolemia, it's depression. Some of the women, they don't eat, anemic. So rather than statin, sometimes I tend to start them on, what is that? SSRI, safe SSRI that motivates, that elevates the mood, then they comply, good. Do you come across, do you screen them for? Because the common adage is, Gundana ponnu venda, Karpana ponnu venda, this is the thing. So,
Screen for depression?
precisely, yeah.
Screen for depression before putting them on statin?
PCOD, not enough. Statin is
PCOD.
Yeah.
Oh yes, we are actually having one research program happening with us now on PCOD and quality of life, where depression is covered. Definitely it is an important aspect to be addressed in PCO, because they have so much image problems. Girls that age have lot of problems. So it is an issue, definitely. I would agree on that.
In Bangalore, maybe in RSS day, Ragi Muddayum, Sardinum Kudunga, Sariya?
A question to Vagichayar, sir.
Hello. I have a question to ask on vitamin.
In the treatment of osteoporosis, vitamin D was recommended for a colleague of mine, and it was found that they developed very high levels of vitamin D, more like vitamin D toxicity. So what is your opinion on that, sir?
I think probably just it unearths the subclinical hyperparathyroidism. Sometimes even a subclinical hyperpara, you give adequate doses of vitamin D, it's like adding fuel to the fire. It may come out with a frank hypercalcemia. Yeah. That may be one of the possibility, but in the dosage prescribed, 1000 units per day or even up to 2000 per day, if you are giving a sachet of 60,000 once a month, should be safe enough. Only thing, whichever medicine you give, we need to monitor for the toxicity. That's why I told you monitor vitamin D levels and monitor even a PTH or at least calcium or at least PTH.
What are the effects of the toxicity of vitamin D?
Okay, hypercalcemia
how
is the one.
Often should we monitor it?
I think
supposing we start them on 60K weekly.
Yeah, what you tolerate is an headache, vomiting, that's the raised ICT features, but that is very rarely we encounter. What we commonly encounter is an hypercalcemia. The hypercalcemia is the one what we commonly encounter, and this hypercalcemia, if you differentiate from what commonly we see as hyperparathyroidism induced, the phosphorus levels will be a normal level, but in a HPTV level, we see that phosphorus are on the lower side. That's the one clue, but by and large, calcium is the one of the simplest and easy to measure toxicity.
Of late, I think vitamin D3 is emerging as a drug for so many diseases. My question is, see, of late, there is a hole in the ozone layer, and infrared rays can cause skin cancer. With this situation, is it advisable to instruct our patients to expose themselves for the direct sunlight?
In fact, I didn't present the other side of the exposure to the sunlight. Yes, they have found that people who are exposed to UV rays, they have increased skin malignancies. For everything comes with a window of opportunity. It's like a bell-shaped benefit. For everything there is a bell-shaped thing. What we are looking at the median, not at the extremes. So if somebody is sensitive, do watch for the things. If you are very much scared of tanning and skin malignancies, best to take is your fortification in the food or supplements.
The present advertised media is asking even men to have this Fair and Lovely. So I don't know, this Fair and Lovely ointment and other such ointments, does it have any role in absorption of vitamin D or synthesis of vitamin D?
I think any sunscreen with more than SPF 6, I think has effect on blocking UV rays.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, one question, please. Actually, regarding vitamin D, in an individual who is having a normal synthesis of D3, but only deficient calcium level is there. When you supplement with D3, will the normal synthesis of D3 will be inhibited? So can we supplement only calcium instead of D3?
Yeah, it's possible. In fact, in pediatric, it's been very well explained. We have got what is known as an calcipenic rickets, wherein vitamin D levels can be adequate. Only a calcium can be on the lower side. You can give just calcium supplement. But what vitamin D does is, if you maintain adequate levels of a vitamin D, it increases the calcium absorption from the gut. If it is 20%, it goes up to 40 to 60%. Almost 1.5 to 2 times it goes up. That's why more safer to replace vitamin D than the calcium.
Just a small seek for clarity. this is highly anecdotal, that regarding PCO, where patients started on metformin, and when the woman is detected UPT positive itself, the clinician having changed to metformin, no, not good, and then advised insulin on that instant itself. And on the contrary, where the first trimester metformin can be, given also, just to seek of clarity. Highly anecdotal, but
yeah, it is true that you can continue metformin, especially in PCO patients, in the first trimester, because it has got progesterone effect also. So it's good to continue to prevent early miscarriages and things like that.
Ma'am, the clarity is to, we should or we
you should.
Can.
You should.
For first trimester.
Yes.
Excuse me, madam. Regarding the same question, somebody say that it should be continued up to 7 or 8 months, metformin. Is it correct?
There is enough data, there is lot of data that people with polycystic ovaries have continued with an OAD like metformin through pregnancy and had very good live births. But what the question was, should I stop? You need not stop, you can continue. If you want to stop, stop it after the first trimester. But if you continue, there is no harm.
Okay, thank you.
One question for you.
Thank you.
What is the role of vitamin D on cholesterol? Is there any lowering effect?
I think observational studies have found that there is some amount of benefit on a cholesterol and regression of atherosclerosis. That's why they propose CV benefits are there with vitamin D. And other most important, vitamin D levels are low. If person is taking statins, there is a risk of developing myalgias. So if you maintain adequate vitamin D levels, these myalgias instances are less.
Okay, I'm going
Thank
to
you,
set the
sir.
time
We are running short of time.
The last contribution from me.
So I thank the speakers.
So we have to stop.
We have to stop.
I thank the speakers for the very interesting session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just Dr. Kurian, if you can stay back on stage. Thank you. Dr. Shanti Gunasingh, if you can come up on stage, please. We thank on behalf of Trendo Muthu. Trendo, we are very grateful to the OGSSI for being Oxy, for being part of this program. This has been an amazing workshop, and I hope that this is just the beginning of future interaction. So, as a token of respect to the entire Obstetrics and Gynecology Society, we are honoring your president and the secretary. Dr. Muthukumaran will give this to Dr. Rekha. And I get to give Dr. Shanti.
Yeah, actually we are very, very happy that we could be part of this conference. As gynecologists, we all love surgery and, we like cutting and doing that. But at the heart of that, we also love endocrinology, because every day we deal with endocrinological problems right from puberty till menopause. So I'm quite glad that you included us in this meeting. Thank you very much.